Hello friends, in the previous class we are discussing about the concept of the ecosystem that continue with the another concept, that's a food chain. Anybody know in the ecosystem what is the role of food chain or what is a food chain? So usually ecosystem there will be a interactions of the abiotic and the biotic component will be occurs. So all biotic component will get the energy from the solar radiation that will be utilized by the plant as a food resources. That food resources is utilized by the other organisms in the ecosystem. That's how the energy is transferred from one trophic level to the other trophic level in the form of food energy. The continuity of this food transfer from one level to the other level is generally referred as a food chain. The food chain is the pathway by which energy passes from one living organism to the other living organisms. Here what happens, the whatever the solar radiation that is utilized by the plant through the photosynthetic mechanism, the food is prepared. That food will be eaten by the herbivores, and these herbivores was consumed by the carnivores, and that carnivores will be eaten by the higher carnivores. So like that, it is a continuous sequence of the eating and eaten by the phenomena. That means the food chain is nothing but in a energy pathway, the one organism will feed on the other organisms to getting the nutrient in the ecosystem. If you take any ecosystem, simply the producers is a plant. That plant will be eaten by the herbivores, and these herbivores will eaten by the carnivores, and these carnivores are eaten by the higher carnivores or the tertiary carnivores. Just an example, these all the whatever the producers are generally referred as autotrophs, and others are we call it as a heterotrophs. So simply that's grasshopper. That grasshopper is will be eaten by the snakes. So or simply grass is eaten by the rabbit, and rabbit is eaten by the fox, and that fox will be eaten by the higher carnivores. So like that, the food energy is transferred from one trophic level to the other trophic level, and each level of this food energy is referred as a trophic. The producers are the first trophic levels, herbivores are the second trophic levels, and carnivores are the third and the fourth level of the food chain. Okay, so there are different types of the food chain. There are mainly three types of the, simply we can say it is three types, that's aquatic, terrestrial and predator food chain, prey predator food chain. So usually simple aquatic food chain is means here the water body as a basic sources, and terrestrial means a land as a resources. That's a one type of general classification. And other different mainly three classes or the kinds of food chains are there. One is a grazing food chain, and another one is a deterioratous food chain, and third one is a parasitic food chain. So what is a grazing food chain? The food chain start with the herbivores, and it is a common type of the food chain. Here what happens, if you take any grassland, grasses is a basic producers, and that grasses is eaten by the herbivores, and later these herbivores are eaten by the other carnivores. For example, grass that will be eaten by grasshopper, the grasshopper will be eaten by frog, and frog will be eaten by snake, snake will be eaten by hawk. So like that, the continuous phenomena, this type of food chain occurs in the terrestrial ecosystem. The another one is a deterioratous food chain. Here the food chain start with the dead and decaying material. So usually dead matter as a basic food resources For example, all dead woods. In the dead wood generally grow the so many fungi, and inside the fungi you will find the some microbes. That's an example. So like that, the all decaying matter whatever the present, that is eaten by the earthworm. Inside the earthworm gut there will be a microbes. So like that, the one form will be food energy will be eaten by the other organs. In the parasitic food chain, here the parasitism will be occurs. So for example, if a bird that will depend on the plant for the food, and inside the bird there will be a ticks on the surface of the in bird, there will be ticks, and inside the tick stomach there will be a small microbes will be there. So like that, one organs will eaten by the organs in a parasitic manner. So that type of food chain is called as a parasitic food chain. So which are the three types? That's a grazing food chain, deteriorator food chain, and the parasitic food chain. So in this type of food chain, there will be a interconnection will be there, and each interconnection mechanism form a just like a web, spider web. The food web shows the eaten how actually the other alternative sources of energy will be getting in the ecosystem. That means, so each whatever the you study the food chain, there will be a provided alternative source for the each organisms. In just to look at the picture, there is a possibility of the plant materials. Snails also eat on the plant, rabbit will also eat on the plant, and other organs will be eaten the plant. But rabbit will be eaten by fox, or rabbit directly eaten by the hawk. That means rabbit will be food for the two organs in the ecosystem, or there may be other chances of there. That means usually fox will eat the mouse, rabbit, and the chicken. So like that, so what happens, there will be alternative sources of the food resources for the each organisms, that is form a web like pattern. So that called as a food web, food chain, and the food web like designing of the food chain is generally referred as a food web. So here what happens, there will be a alternate sources of the energy or the utilization option will be available. In if you take any grassland, grass is a basic source. That grass will be eaten by rabbit, or may be eaten by the grasshopper, or may be eaten by the snail, or may be eaten by the mouse. All are depend on that producers, and each producers will be consumed by different carnivores. That may be a fox, or maybe a wolf, or maybe a hawk, or maybe other organisms. But for the each organisms there will be a option, second option will be there. Even the birds will get the food from the other resources. Just they can eat the mouse, or they can eat the snail, or they can eat the caterpillar, or they can eat the shrew. Similarly, fox can eat rabbit, mouse, or shrew, or the snail, or the chicken, whatever it may be. Even the chicken will also, they can eat the snail, or they can eat the grain, or then they can eat the caterpillar. So like that, there will be a option for each organs in the ecosystem, that is generally referred as a food web. Food web is nothing but the food energy provided an alternative source for the each organs in an ecosystem. So I hope you'll get the concept of food web and the food chain. There are three types of food chain, and these food chain to compromise the food web. Okay, this is how the overview of the food chain and the food web in the ecosystem. So usually each ecosystem have the different types of the food chain and the food web. In if you take the grassland, there will be a basic, that's a grazing food chain will be there. If you take the aquatic ecosystem, there is also a basic type of the food chain. That's usually producers, green plant, phytoplankton, zooplankton, small fishes, larger fishes. So like that availability there. And each organs will have the get the alternative source for the their food. That's how the food energy provide the alternative source for the each organisms in a ecosystem form to a food web, food chain and the food web. I hope you will get the concept of this food chain and the food web.